Good morning, church. You're right, Stephen. That song was money. Thanks for putting the prayer and thought into that. So I have, arguably, and I'm biased, I think I have the greatest parents in the world. And they're wonderful. They were an elder couple here for 20 years. They're both still in active ministry, love Jesus, just been a big blessing in my life for a long time. But the other day, I was helping them move. They just moved houses across town, and I was unpacking a box, and something fell out of that box, which gave me pause. Anybody know what this is? Well, I didn't know what it was, but I've been to a few torture device museums in the course of my life. And so I looked at this thing and thought, this is either an eyeball plucker or a bowel remover. And I was holding it, just me and my dad in the garage, and kind of cue the creepy music in your mind. And I looked at this thing and I said, Dad, what is this? And he says, oh, well, that belonged to my grandfather. And I was like, well, that didn't help. I was like, oh, okay, it's like an ancestral curse. Or I said, yeah, but what does it do? And he says, oh, those are ice tongs. Ice tongs? Like, what do you do with ice tongs? He's like, well, that's what people use to get blocks of ice. There used to be people that would come down the street and you'd walk out and you'd get your block of ice and walk back and put it in your freezer. And I said, I'm not buying that. Where are the dead bodies? Like, something's wrong here. He's right, and many of you are right. These are, in fact, ice tongs. And when he told me what they were, I had two reactions. One was, honestly, I was just grateful again for yet another technology that I take for granted. I'm thankful for modern day ice machines. My second reaction was a little bit of, whimsical loss, you might say. And I thought to myself, it actually would have been kind of cool to live around the time where you used these things. I actually thought of that scene from Frozen 1, the first scene, where you have the ice harvesters and little Kristoff is out there and he's trying to help get those blocks of ice. And I just thought, that'd be fun you walk down the driveway and there's a truck there and you talk to the person and you get the ice and you feel that satisfaction of the crunch of the ice when the tongs go in, and you walk it back into your house and you hoist it up. You have to do a squat. You have to get it in there. Something about that I think I would have enjoyed. So an author a long time ago, actually, about 60 years ago, named Marshall McLuhan, he wrote a book which was prophetic about technology, not just in his day, but in any era. And his main thesis was that every advance in technology is both an extension and also an amputation. So it does two things. Technology will always push the limits of what we can do. It extends our capacities as human beings, but at the same time, it also amputates something else in the process. So, for example, modern day ice machines, the extension is that they give us ice a lot faster and easier. But the amputation, it's small, but we don't get to do that physical labor that it used to require. Think about cars. The extension is that we can travel anywhere really fast. The amputation is that we don't walk as frequently as we used to. Or think about the printing press. The extension there is that ideas can just spread all over the world so fast, and yet the amputation is our capacity to memorize large chunks of text is virtually gone. Or think about modern individual recording devices, whether that's a record player or CD, cassette, MP3, streaming. Like, what has that done? Well, the extension is that it's increased the individual access to music. And the amputation is that there is much less live musical performances these days as opposed to 50, 60 years ago, especially in the local setting. Or finally, think about TV. The extension here was awareness. We now know so much more about what's happening in the world, and yet the amputation is activity. We don't do as much. We don't walk around as much. We're not as active because of TV. So with technology, every advance in technology, it's both an extension, but it's also an amputation. And so what are the extensions and the amputations of artificial intelligence? We started talking about this last week, but the extensions are super easy to recognize, and they're amazing. Last week, I went in depth into what the advances specifically are in the medical field, and they're vast, and they're incredible, and they're going to keep happening, and many, many lives over the decades are going to be saved because of artificial intelligence. The extensions are just remarkable. In fact, it's not just medical. Here's another realm of existence. Logos Bible Software has an AI component to what they do, and so now you can actually talk to this chatbot, which is synthesizing some of the best commentaries in the world. And so you can have a conversation as if you were talking to one of the smartest scholars on earth. That's really cool that you can do that. One of my friends sent me this new program that one of her family members is helping to pioneer. It's called Tapos, which is this ministry now where any church, and this is especially helpful for smaller churches, you can upload content, like sermon content, and then Tapos will take that and spit out all sorts of supplementary materials, whether that's Bible class curriculum or small group guide or discussion questions. And in fact, last week I spent a lot of time with other preachers around the country at this retreat, and these kinds of tools are really helpful. I talked to some professors recently who are super excited about what AI is allowing them to do from an educational perspective. So there's all sorts of extensions about what AI is going to allow us to do. Well, what about the other side? What are the amputations? Well, there's a lot, and I'm not even quite sure if most people realize what they are at this point. I have my gut feel on AI right now is two words describe it. Number one, it's optimistic. AI is here to stay. Seth Godin says within just a few decades, it's going to feel like electricity. It's going to be everywhere all the time. So I think it's here to stay, and I think it can do a lot of good in the world. At the exact same time, a second gut feel reaction that I'm having is I'm cautious. Part of the reason I'm cautious is because I don't think most of us know yet what the amputation is going to be. What are we going to lose? In fact, one of the points that Marshall McLuhan makes in his book is that in the early days of any new technology, usually people are numb to what the amputation is going to be. We're not aware of it yet. We're so excited about what we're gaining that we don't have any awareness about what we might lose. And so I'm cautious because I don't know exactly what we are going to lose, but I get the sense that because of how incredible AI is, that the cost of it long term is going to be high on what it even means to be a human being. I'm convinced more and more that we're going to have to fight for our humanity, or else we're going to lose it. But let me make my case for why I think that. Mainly, there's two practices that I am a little concerned that we're going to lose. So first, Genesis 1:26, God says, "Let us make mankind in our image." This is one of the most significant statements about what it means to be a human being. There is no other organism, body, or life form that is given this designation of being an image bearer. It's only human beings. And what it means is that we are to function like and embody the characteristics of God. Well, what's the very first thing that God does? First sentence, first paragraph, first book of the Bible, in the beginning God created. And so you were made in the image of a maker, meaning that humans were made to make. It's part of the core nature of what it actually means to be a human being. And this is alluded to or talked about explicitly, actually in the New Testament, Ephesians 2, we're God's handiwork, and we're created in Christ Jesus to do these good works. So at the core of being a human being is being a creator. We make, we produce, we put together resources in certain combinations, often through trial and error, and we generate new phenomena in the world. We make fire, we make bricks, we make swords and spears, we make tools, we make shoes, we make clothes, we make coffee, we make sandwiches, we make ice cream, we make fences, we make barns, we make farms, we make streets and buildings and cities, we make apologies, we make amends, we make friends, we make music, we make art, we make love, we make sales, we make stories, we make connections, we make a living. And making resonates deeply within us. Like, you know this feeling, whether you knit a scarf or write an essay or draw a picture or remodel your bathroom, it feels good. There's something satisfying about a job well done. I made that. So here's the reality. You don't have to make anymore, at least with your mind. Like, you don't have to do that if you don't want to. AI can do your homework for you, like pretty much all of it. AI can write that love poem for your significant other that you don't really want to do. It can make your itinerary for the upcoming vacation to Disney World. It can offer that brilliant summary and even give you really good opinions about that book that you were supposed to read but you didn't read and it's just going to take too long. It can do any of those things. Like, you don't have to make anymore with your mind. And so one question that's been wrestling in my head is this: how would I be different in 10 years if I outsourced 90% of my mental making to AI? Well, that's something to think about. How would we be different? Like, right now I could say to you, hey, for homework this week, I'd like you to memorize the book of Psalms. And you would say to yourself, well, that's dumb. No one can do that. That's laughable. That's ridiculous. Why would anybody even think about memorizing the book of Psalms? Whereas 1,200 years ago, if I said, hey, let's memorize the book of Psalms, you'd say, okay. Because 1,200 years ago, collectively, the human brain could do that. Or at least it might take a while, but we could do that. But nowadays, you're like, there's no way. Well, fast forward 50, 60 years, if we outsource all of our critical thinking to AI, then there could come a day where a preacher someday, maybe my grandson or my great-great-grandson, could stand up in a pulpit somewhere and say, hey, your homework this week is I want you to write an essay. And the audience at that time is going to react the same way that you respond today with the challenge to memorize the book of Psalms. They would think to themselves, I can't do that. Who could write an essay? And that sounds ludicrous, but I don't think that's too far-fetched if we outsource 95% of our critical thinking. And this issue is really personal to me because I'm a minister. I'm a preacher. And I've been doing it a really long time. And honestly, it'd be really easy to just use AI to get my sermon work done. And some weeks I kind of want to, because I've got a lot of things going on. And my guess is if AI wrote all of my sermons, by some metrics they'd actually be better, more interesting, better vocab, better engagement with scholarship. I'd also guess that most of you wouldn't tell the difference, like you wouldn't know. But the cost would be that I would know. Like there's something really formative to me that happens as I wrestle with the Bible and think about what might be helpful to say to the church that I love. Like every week I read a lot and then I start writing and thinking, and at some point, I close all the commentaries, even close the Bible that I've read, and I just like close my eyes and put my head on my hands, and I start thinking, all right, what's the intersection between the Holy Spirit and the Bible and my own life and the church that I love? And I just think, and I think, and I think, and I think, and that's where the birth of an idea usually comes from. That's really formative to me. In other words, like my walk with Jesus needs that prep just as much as some of you in your walk with Jesus need that delivery. Like we're formed by it. The other day I went home and I was irritated about something and my family was like, what's going on? And honestly, what had happened is I just preached on something. This is a while back. I'm not going to tell you what it was. I just preached on something, and then literally after I preached it, something irritating happened, and I actually had to follow through with what I just preached about. Something happened, someone said something, it was frustrating, and I actually had to follow through with what I preached about. That's the formation of being a preacher. And don't you want a preacher that does that? You don't just want a talking head that can spout out information to you. There's something really formative about wrestling with the text. Now, some of you might be thinking, whoa, you're taking this way too far, Phil. It's not as dire as you think it is. I only use AI because it just saves a little bit of what? You can say it. It saves time. That's by far and away the number one motive I hear anybody say when they talk about using AI. Well, sure, I could write that paper, but I just don't have time. Sure, I could read that book, but boy, that's the C.S. Lewis book, and it's really dense, and I got to go to the study, and I can't get it all in, so AI could do that for me. And the homework assignment is just way too long. I've got to use AI because it's going to save me some time. It all saves time. That's what we talk about. Now, first of all, I have a comment here. I need to qualify this by saying I'm a time saver-aholic. Like this is like a love language to me. I said this a few years ago in a different sermon, but I'm trying to get better at this. But on my worst days, I actually button my shirt at stoplights because that saves 15 seconds. So I am a time saver-aholic. I love being efficient. It's really important to me. But here's the question beneath the question. What are we saving time for? Look at this chart. In 1910, the average household spent 6 hours a day in food prep, eating, and cleanup. By 1960, that number was down to 90 minutes, and today that's about 37 minutes with all the advances of microwaves and dishwashers and all sorts of things. Never in the history of the world has there been a culture that has got as good at saving time as we are. Like we have more time at our disposal than any culture in history. We have a lot of it. And so the question becomes, well, what are you saving the time for? And here's where, if we're honest with ourselves, we have two answers to that. We have here's what I'd like to say, and here's what is actually going on. So imagine that someone meets with you over coffee, and you tell them, hey, the last 2 years I've become incredibly efficient. And AI has been a big part of that. And I have saved a solid, 13 hours a week. And this person asks, they're like, wow, that's amazing. Well, what are you doing with all that time? Here's what you'd like to say. I've been doing my planks. Got to get that in. I've always wanted to read Shakespeare. So, I'm a lot of Shakespeare these days. And my garden in the backyard, it's just fantastic. I'm spending a lot of time out there. Those tomatoes, they are looking good. And for years, I've always said I was going to pray 30 minutes a day, doing it, check. My friendships, they're great because I just spend all this time cultivating these friendships, and it's great. And I'm getting my extra 5,000 steps like every day. And I'm tutoring the kids at the school after hours, and I'm feeding the homeless. That's what I'm doing with my time. What about you? Like, that's what we want to say. That's not true. What are you actually doing with the time that you're saving? You're watching YouTube videos. And you're watching cable news. And you're watching sports. You're scrolling on your phone. And you're playing video games. Like, that's what we're actually doing with the time that we're saving. And so what this means is, honestly, I don't know if you saw this movie. This means that Wall-E has come true. Like, we're there. This is a dystopian movie about robots, and eventually if they do everything, what does that mean humans are left to do? Well, this is what we do: Slurpees and screens. In other words, if you outsource all of your production, the only thing that's left is consumption. And this is why I'm concerned. It's because we weren't made for that. We're made to make. Now, others of you, if I could take a little different tack here, you're a little defensive because you're saying, no, you don't know me for that. I'm not doing that with my extra time. What I'm doing is I'm just so busy. My life is just out of control. So I'm being efficient and filling it with all sorts of other things, and I get that. I'm in that boat a little bit. So if that's you, here's a loving word for you and me. Some of us have been swallowed by the machine of overcommitment, where we have to do it all. And that has forced us to shortchange everything, and thus experience nothing to its fullest. An overfull schedule is the fastest way to a half-full life. So for some of us, we do not need AI. We need NO. Because NO also gives you time. It gives you time to do things that are really important. In fact, some of the most important parts of life are the ones that take time. Does anybody want an efficient wedding? Do you want the 18 years of early parenting to be knocked out in just 5 minutes a week? The most important things in life take time. And we need to invest our time in those things. You were not made, definitively, Genesis 1 made, to be efficient. You were not made simply to consume. You were made to make. And so I'm not saying stop using AI. It's really helpful in some regards. Journey said don't stop believing. All I'm saying is don't stop making. Keep making with your mind, keep making with your hands. Make with your mind, make with your hands, make with your mind, make with your hands. Here's a second reason why I am cautious about AI. I'm optimistic, but I'm cautious. Back to Genesis 1, notice the same verse. Let us make man in our image. So God does not say, let me make mankind in my image. He says, let us make mankind in our image. Now, what is the us? Either Trinitarian or Heavenly Council, two very helpful thought trains to pursue, but it's plurality in either case, and that's the point here. You have been made in the image of a relational God. In fact, the very next chapter in Genesis 2, God says, it's not good for man to be alone. I will make a helper suitable for him. So here is something else, that a distinctive feature that makes you a human. So first, you were made to make. Second, human beings were made to relate. So I mentioned this last week, but there's a growing trend that more and more people are using AI for emotional connection, for friendship, for dating, for spiritual guidance, for counseling. Replica is a companion chatbot that presents itself as the AI who cares. It has 2 million users worldwide. According to a Wheatley study, 19% of U.S. adults have chatted with AI romantic partners. 83% of Gen Z believes fully that they can form deep emotional bonds with AI. So let's take McLuhan's framework once again. So remember, every advance is both an extension and an amputation. So the extension here, specifically with this emotional connection, is more people can have some kind of emotional connection more easily. That's the extension. What's the amputation? The amputation is human-to-human interaction. And so you tell me, do you think there's a cost, given 10 years, 20 years, if somebody outsources all of their human-to-human interactions for AI, do you think there'd be a cost? Absolutely. Like, it doesn't take much common sense thinking. Yes, there is an immense cost here. In fact, just think about this with me. When somebody creates an AI girlfriend, what will she be like? Well, she's not going to criticize you. She's going to laugh at all your jokes. She's never going to get tired or sick. She's not going to have parents that you're going to have to pretend to like. She's always going to think that you're wonderful. She's going to have your preferred personality. She's going to be like digital memory foam. She will adjust to your precise way of being. And so here's again, the deeper question is, how does that help you grow as a person? It doesn't. You could say to this AI girlfriend, I've decided to tell my boss how much I hate him. And what's she going to say? That's a great idea. You should do that. You could say to your AI girlfriend, you know what? I think I'm becoming God. And what's she going to say? That's wonderful. How's that going for you? I mean, it's all going to be supportive to whatever you think. How does that help you grow? How does that help you develop resilience and transform into a better person? It doesn't. See, the thing that makes human-to-human relationships so critical is the fact that there's another sentient, independent, conscious mind on the other end of that, with the capacity to love me, but also at times to disagree with me. And that's critical to life. So a few days ago, my family's out driving to a restaurant to celebrate my daughter Heidi's birthday. Last time we went to this restaurant, there was a really long line. I didn't want to wait in that line. So we're driving over there, and we have an errand to run at the same time. Mary would like to take these library books to the library. And so we get an argument about the order of events here. Like, I think we got to get to this restaurant because me, time-save-aholic, efficiency, I don't want to wait in line. And so I lay out my case. And then Mary pauses thoughtfully, and then she says, well, you know, Phil, just a few thoughts here. Number one, the library's right there. I can see it out my window. Two, this would be a right turn in and out. Three, I don't even have to go in the library. All I got to do is just drop it off at the box. Number four, this is going to take less than 30 seconds. And then number five, we're not going to go this route on the way home. And so it would actually take more time on the back end. Whew. So in my head, I'm thinking, that's really annoying, Mary. Like, you're just supposed to agree with me. I had a good argument. You're not supposed to have a good counter argument. That's just frustrating. And so what do? I pull in, we return the books. It doesn't even take 30 seconds. It's like 21 seconds. It's crazy. And that's really good as a human being to do that. Like, I need someone to give me the other opinion every once in a while. You need that too. Like, we all need that. That's what we mean. I mean, Solomon knew this a long time ago when he said it really well. Iron sharpens iron. You know what doesn't sharpen iron? Memory foam. The quickest way to become a narcissist is to outsource all of your relationships to AI. So here's a picture that I really like. It's true. I would guess 99% of the world doesn't know what to do with ice tongs, assuming that's what they are, and if they're not torture devices. But there's about 1% of the world that still knows what to do with them. And I'm really glad those people are still here. So this is the Ice Festival, the annual Ice Festival in Harbin, and everything you see on there is created from blocks of ice. All these buildings and slides, and they create this space where families can come and they experience all kinds of joy by engaging in a practice that most of the world thinks is archaic. So here's the reality. You don't have to make any more with your mind, ever again. You don't have to write another paper. You don't have to do your homework. You can outsource that for the rest of your life if you want to. And if you really want to, you don't have to deal with irritating people ever again. You can hole up, create a few friends online with AI chatbots, and you will never have to deal with an annoying person for the rest of your life. Like, it's possible. But all I'm saying today is there's an immense cost to that. Like, if you don't fight for what it means to be a human being, you're actually going to lose that over time. That's all I'm saying. We're going to have to fight for this. We're going to have to fight to relate. We're going to have to fight to keep making with our minds. Because I'm not ready to live in a world where those things aren't there anymore. So last week when I'm at this retreat with all these preachers, there was one particular session where this counselor was talking about self-care. And she threw out this question to the room. She said, I want you to tell me a story about a day when your church loved you. And there was a long pause, like uncomfortably long. I was like, oh, this is really sad. There's only about 25 ministers in the room. Well, finally, this guy speaks up. And he looks just like Wolverine from the old X-Men movies. Like, older guy, grizzly, beard, very manly. He's from Canada. So he finally speaks up. And he says, well, I'll tell you stories. When I got back from the mission field in Japan years ago, I got a job at a local church, and I was pretty uncomfortable with this church. I had done the interview, and I didn't know if it was going to be a good fit. I didn't think we agreed on some pretty important issues, but I needed a job. And I had a young family, and so I took the job, and I never forget, I got up my first Sunday to preach a sermon, and I'm preaching, and my wife's on the second pew, and my 2-year-old son started to do 2-year-old things. Just started to cry and make noise, and I was mortified. And then in the middle of my sermon, these 5 ladies get up, 3 elders' wives, 2 other members, and they come down and they surround my wife. And I'm, as he's telling the story, he's across the room over here, and I actually can't see him. I'm looking at the facilitator, listening, and then there's another long pause, like really long. And I'm like, is he okay? And I look over. The reason that he's paused is Wolverine is crying. Like he's just tears coming down his cheek. He can't even get the next words out of his mouth. So finally he says, these ladies come and they surround my wife and my 2-year-old, and they say, we're not going anywhere. And they didn't. They were there on that pew for the next 18 years, and they helped raise my son. And that's when I knew that love would overcome difference. Like, whew. So he's telling this story, and I'm thinking, wow, AI can't do that. Like, that's amazing. There's something so human about that story. And so here's where I'm going to end. We all need to realize the gravity of what's happening in the room and what's happening every Sunday. We need to realize the gravity of the church. It's becoming increasingly rare in the world to have a group of people come together under a common cause to live life together. And that's what happens with the church every week. Like, so you're a leg up on most of the rest of the world because you come to church and you know elders. You can talk to elders. You know ministers. You have brothers and sisters in Christ. And see, the truth is, any of you could go to AI and ask any question you want about any part of life, theology, and you'd get really good answers. But you wouldn't be known. I am actually so encouraged because I know for a fact that so many of you do go to your elders and you come to ministers. I mean, I have so many conversations every week. Hey, Phil, can we get together and talk about this? You want to do coffee? Can we do lunch? Hey, let's talk about this. Like, you're getting together with people to talk about really important things, and that's so, so important because, again, AI can give you great answers, but it doesn't know who you are. AI is not going to come to your funeral. AI is not going to be sad when you die. There's something so critical about this human-to-human encounter, and we get it every week when we come to church. It's amazing. Like, this is what we were made to do. You were made to walk with each other. You were made to eat together. You were made to pray together. You were made to speak truth to one another and to apologize when you get it wrong and to forgive each other when you get hurt. You were made to show up at the events of your friends' lives. You were made to embrace one another. You were made to cry together. You were made to listen to one another. You were made to love each other, and we get to do that every single week. It's the beauty of the church. and according to Jesus in Matthew 25, and according to Jacob in Genesis 33, and according to John in 1 John 4, you go look it up. Looking at the face of a human being is the surest way to see the face of God. So do not lose your humanity. In fact, you're going to have to fight for your humanity in years to come. And if you don't fight for it, I think you're going to lose it. It's who you were made to be. So we're going to sing. If you need a human-to-human encounter, elders are going to be in the back. I'll be down front if you'd like to get baptized. Let's stand and sing.